Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
I mean, not so much that the thing's fucking boring, but
You saying I'm boring?
if you sit there and just breathe into the mic, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't ever do that.
Well, I'm just saying, don't get started today. And that's my sister, Darth Vader.
Well, she just told me not to breathe into the mic today. Anyway,
Happy Hanukkah.
or Valentine's Day.
Or that, whatever.
So what do you got for us, Claire?
Before we get started on today's case, we're going to start with our 3 usual hints, and I'm very excited about this one because I don't even know that we've done a case here, and you're never going to guess.
Texas. I'm just being obnoxious. All right, go.
Anyway, it's home to the second largest canyon, as in the ground, not the boom kind.
Arizona?
Nope. And in the 70s, it became a booming state. Economically, socially, culturally, oil money, manufacturing, suburban growth, all transformed pretty much almost overnight.
Well, I would say Texas because of the oil, but you said we haven't done one here, so
Okay, since you've said Texas twice, I'm just going to tell you it's Texas. But I was trying to throw you off, and then you went and were an asshole and guessed it without even any clues.
that's because you set me up on like your last case because you were like, I got another one that's in Texas. So that's why I told you the other day, I'm just going to guess Texas for all of them from now on. And I know eventually I will get it.
If you could have seen my face when I was like, you're never going to guess it. And then you say, fucking Texas.
Well, you're a big fat liar, by the way, because you tried to say we've never done one here before. Liar, liar, liar.
Cheater. I think you read my emails.
I just told you I don't check my emails unless I know that I'm getting something.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't be a sore loser. So what are we doing in Texas, the place we've never visited?
Anyway, so since we've never been to Texas or Fort Worth, particularly in the 70s, I'm just going to tell you a little about it. So in the 70s in Fort Worth,
You're a shit.
families were moving outward into new subdivisions. Teenagers had freedoms that would be unthinkable today. Late nights, unmonitored hangouts, privacy in parked cars.
But to be fair, that wasn't just in Fort Worth. That was quite literally everywhere.
Up until the 90s, really. But particularly, I'm just setting the time for the 70s of there's a lot of freedom for the teens because that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
Parents believed Fort Worth was safe, and statistically, they weren't wrong. Violent, strange abductions were still perceived as rare, something that happened elsewhere, especially in that time frame, because we both know between the 60s and the 70s, a lot of weird shit happened and people were just getting snatched up left and right. Apparently in Fort Worth, since they were a growing city, that wasn't a thing. They were still relatively safe.
This podcast says otherwise. The number of cases we've done in just Fort Worth.
Well, I'm saying in the 70s. This is like in that time period. I would say the 70s, since they started growing, that's when crime started to hit. But prior to that, it was more, it was Cowtown. There was less of the crime, but as cities grow, so does the crime. But at this point in time, it was almost unheard of to have those violent things happening.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that illusion shattered in February 1974 with Carla Walker, who was 17 years old. She was a junior in high school, a cheerleader. She loved music. She loved her friends. She was close with her family. Those who knew her would describe her as outgoing and warm, exactly what you would expect from a cheerleader, but also the kind of person who could make a room feel lighter just by being in it. Her parents were protective, not crazy controlling, but Carla had earned their trust through being responsible, and on the night she is abducted, she was doing something completely ordinary. She went to a school Valentine's dance with her boyfriend Rodney, and Carla and Rodney had only been dating about a month. Young, newly together, doing what teenagers do on Saturday nights. And after a Valentine's Day dance, Carla and her boyfriend decide to sit in the car and just chit-chat.
Yeah.
you know, you've got one of those teens in your midst of
Hey,
they just get lost in each other's eyes and it's just
this is
stars.
not necessary, ma'am.
It is. I'm just pointing it out to you that they decide to park at Brunswick.
They went parking.
They decide to park at the bowling alley
Oh,
and just do their chitty chatting.
they were doing some necking.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't. I would say they were probably doing that too, but they wanted their alone time.
Mm-hmm. To do some necking.
Hmm. Well, they're doing their teenage ritual when a strange man approaches the car armed with a gun. He orders Carla's boyfriend out of the car. When the boyfriend hesitates, the man strikes him with the pistol, yanks his ass out of the car, and proceeds to pistol whip him in the head, telling him to lie face down, which barely conscious he does. And the man tells him, typical, you move, I'm going to kill you. And after the whooping he just sustained, he believes him. Then the man drags Carla out of the vehicle. Now, Carla's boyfriend is bleeding and terrified and on the ground. But as soon as he regains enough consciousness, is when he runs for help. Because when he pops up off the ground, Carla's gone.
Oh.
Now, police arrive quickly, but by this point, she's gone. Her purse is found in the parking lot, and her boyfriend didn't see what vehicle they got into, so they have no car description or a license plate. Beyond that, it was dark, and he really couldn't give much of a description of the man because it happened so fast, and before he knew it, he was getting bludgeoned.
See, this is why you're not supposed to go sit in a parking lot. And if you are,
Lock your
you
fucking
lock your
door.
doors.
Yeah, because he went from making out, or maybe they weren't making out, even if they were chit chatting, they were so engulfed in their own world. And I wish it could be safe enough for people to do that, but there are bad people out there.
No, let's face it. I want to say it's like American Pie where they're like doing it in the car and she's puking out the window and he's still doing
Oh,
it. I realize that's not what they were doing, but nobody wants to see all that in a
I don't know
parking
what
lot.
movie that was. I thought you were going to talk about Back to the Future
I was,
when
but that wasn't consensual, which is why I backtracked off of that one. And there was one, but I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was American Pie because
no,
they were crude.
you need to go back and watch your Back to the Future because there's where they're sitting in the car and they're just chit-chatting when Biff walks up and yanks him out of the car, and then it's no longer consensual because he swapped out the dude.
Yes, but I was referencing them teenagers doing the nasty in the car. And could you imagine if it was such a safe world that you're in a parking lot, you just glance over and it's like, ah, I got to cover my boy's eyes because there's
There's
two
butt
teenagers.
cheeks in the window.
Right.
I assumed since it was after the Valentine's dance, it was later, so I don't assume the youngins were out.
I'm guessing it's a weekend, it's a bowling alley, and you never know.
Anyway, so the police get there, they find her purse. There's no description of car, no license plate. He doesn't get a good description of the man other than he's a white feller, probably about 5'10". When they're looking all over the parking lot and everything, they also find a magazine from a gun that the assailant had unknowingly dropped while he was beating Carla's boyfriend,
Ugh,
which is fucking ironic to me because now, mind you, if I was getting beat with a pistol, I wouldn't think maybe he dropped the magazine and I can really fight back because who knows if there's one in the chamber anyway.
yeah.
But how crazy is that he didn't even notice he dropped the magazine out of his gun?
You would have thought it would have got lighter, but I guess in the adrenaline of kidnapping
Right.
and assault.
He wasn't paying attention when he probably jammed it in his trousers.
Yeah.
But the police would go inside hoping that they'd find someone who heard a disturbance or saw something, but no one did, which is even crazier to me that somebody can be abducted and there'll be all sorts of a commotion and no one sees anything. Nobody hears a car peel out, nothing.
But have you ever been in a bowling alley? It's loud.
That's valid, but you ever been to a bowling alley where there weren't people in the parking lot or outside?
Yes, they're usually inside.
I was about to say me too, but I was like, I don't even know why I'm asking this question.
It's sad nonetheless, but
Yeah. I was waiting for you to be like, he didn't fight back.
well, it sounds like you're kind of throwing two different versions out of how hard he got conked in the head. Because I would have said he didn't fight back, but then when you said when he came to, it sounds like he was unconscious on the ground and couldn't fight back.
Well, it was real hard for the boy because it sounded like he got pistol whipped pretty bad. And they don't say that he was out for a while, but I would just assume he was real disoriented enough to know that he was told if you move, you're going to be killed. And since you just get that beating, you don't question it. But I don't know how long, like, I don't know. I haven't been pistol whipped to know how much time you'd lose, but so I don't know how long until he was felt it was safe to pop up. What, like that measure of time?
Yeah.
But I had a little fun fact for you
Mm.
that it's easy to ask why someone wouldn't run or fight when a gun is involved,
Flight or fight.
but the body doesn't always respond the way we imagine it would. At gunpoint, the brain's survival system takes over. People often comply automatically, not because they're weak or passive, but because the brain is calculating the fastest way to stay alive. In Carla's boyfriend's case, her kidnapper already proved he was willing to be violent. He didn't comply. Moving wasn't a hesitation, it was the difference between one victim and two. This kind of response is actually so common that law enforcement and trauma specialists expect it. It's not a failure, it's survival. And let's not forget that we're talking about young adults.
They're not adults.
Young adults. You figure in the 70s, I mean, you pretty much were.
If you still have to go to school in the morning, you ain't no adult. Just because the law says you can be charged as one. These are.
Yeah, but then you're saying college kids aren't adults.
No, they don't have.
Back in the 70s, you were treated more as an adult. And I said young adult.
No, they're not young adults.
They practically are.
They're teenagers.
Just like your boy in your house is. He's practically one.
Hello. Practically doesn't mean that you are.
He goes to work, he goes to school, he has a girlfriend, he has a vehicle, he's doing all the things other than waiting until his 18th birthday. He's a young adult.
No, he's not. He's a teenager.
Whatever.
And the difference between a high schooler and a college student is a professor doesn't give two shits if you show up to class. If you don't show up to class in high school, they contact the police and they can haul your ass to juvie because of truancy issues. So there is a big difference between high school and college students.
You're getting real bogged down in weird spots in this.
That's because you want to argue with me about weird shit.
Well, anyway, it's startling to Fort Worth that a young lady was snatched up in such a violent way, and they don't have really any way
to find her,
to track this. Yeah. But so they're going to warn people to not go out alone, particularly the young girls. Parents are going to tighten up curfews, and police are going to launch a massive search. But they pretty much have nothing to go on, and they don't find anything. No eyewitnesses, no license plates, no usable physical evidence, at least not with the 1970s technology.
Oh.
3 days later, a man's driving early in the morning, just as the sun's coming up, and he sees something odd, so he stops and peeks in a culvert.
Aww.
And realizes it's a body.
Poor Carla.
It is indeed the body of Carla. She was tossed in that drainage culvert off a rural road in Benbrook, southwest of Fort Worth, just 6 miles from where she was abducted.
Oh.
Now, there are no nearby buildings or homes, and police are there immediately, and there wasn't a sign of a struggle at the site, which meant she was dumped there and not killed where she laid.
Oh, no shit.
Now, during her autopsy, Carla had found to have been sexually assaulted. Now, during that autopsy, they're going to collect semen, blood, and hair. The hair wasn't Carla's based on the thickness and the color. They also determined she hadn't been in the culvert for days, so her kidnapper had her for at least 2.
That's sad.
Where she was clearly beaten and raped before being strangled to death.
Her poor family.
Mm-hmm. There were tire tracks at the scene, but they weren't clear enough to determine what kind of vehicle they would have come off of. And also, I feel like even though it's not a well-traveled road, you don't necessarily know that those are the tires. But there were some, they just weren't able to be used for a shit.
For a shit?
Well, for shit. I mean, they couldn't really do anything with it. So there were tire tracks, but they did us no good. We're no closer to anything with Carla's killer finding them.
Yeah. I was just laughing at how you said it.
Yeah. Investigators are going to describe the crime as controlled and deliberate, not impulsive. This wasn't a crime of panic. Police start looking at people who live nearby the bowling alley. They aren't thinking it's a drifter because they know enough to get to the rural road. They know enough where people lingered, an escape route. Like,
they know the area.
Fundamentally, it seems like this person knew their way around. So they start talking to the men that live near the bowling alley. Men that could easily reach the bowling alley either by foot or a short drive. Also men that had no alibi. One of those men was on this very long list was Glen Samuel McCurley Jr. He lives nearby, within a mile of the bowling alley. He owned a gun, but not just any gun, a 22 Ruger that used the same magazine as what was found at the crime scene.
And his is missing.
He fits the general profile of the man that could overpower a teenage girl. He had a criminal record. Now, mind you, it was from stealing a car in 1960, and he'd been released for years before her murder. He wasn't a sex offender, and he wasn't known to police to be violent.
Just because he isn't known doesn't mean that he isn't one.
Well, he's also married with 2 kids.
Oh. Well, that's not a first either.
Yeah, well, a family that happened to be out of town that night. But not having an alibi doesn't make you guilty of anything either.
What about not having the clip for your Ruger?
But police are going to interview him, but forensic science in 74 can't link him conclusively to a crime scene. And the gun he had, you're dead on, it was stolen a while ago.
Oh, I done just forgot to report it.
Yeah, and bear in mind, again, in the 70s, an interview often meant a short conversation about basic whereabouts. It wasn't recorded, no DNA swabbing for reference samples. So pretty much if a person denied involvement and there was no absolute contradiction to that, like physical evidence tying them to the crime, the interview ended there. They didn't have anything else, so they would just continue. And unbelievably, he's going to be cleared.
And he did it.
I was going to say. And spoiler, this is one of the most haunting facts of this case because they just talked to Carla Walker's killer and then let him go home.
That's got to feel dirty once it's finally figured out to those cops.
I'm sure. There's no way it couldn't be. Years pass, then decades. Carla's family never stops asking questions, but Glen continues to live freely with his wife and children.
Was it one of those situations where the police knew it was him, they just couldn't prove it, or they legitimately were like, oh, it wasn't him, but we don't know who it was?
I feel like it was probably we have a very light suspect list. This guy fits for the most part. We just have nothing
to go on.
Yeah. So how do you prove something when technology doesn't exist yet to do that? So we just wait out the clock. But Glen, like I said, continues to live freely. He becomes a grandfather. He attends church regularly. Neighbors describe him as quiet and polite. No one suspects anything until we hit 2010. Investigators take a new look at the evidence. Since at this point, DNA has come so far, many departments are systematically re-auditing cold cases to see if they can solve them.
Gotta love the cold case files.
So they load into the DNA that was collected from Carla and begin building their profile. It just happens that it hits a match to Glen McCurley. The police then go and grab some of his trash to test it against the DNA to verify that it was a match and not an error.
You really like the trash digging ones.
I sure do! And in September 2020, police will arrest Glen McCurley.
Hold up. You said 2010. Now we're in 2020? A whole decade goes by?
Well, you got to keep in mind, it's one of those, nothing moves quickly. It's a cold case that, like, DNA might have, like, moved things to the top, but nothing moves quickly. It's not like a TV show, Andrea.
Yeah, but a decade. God.
What's one more? But in September 2020, police arrest Glen McCurley. He's in his late 70s at this point. There is no resistance, although how much resistance can you expect from a 70-year-old? And don't give me any of your stories from your old people museum.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Glen denies killing Carla, but a jury will convict him based on the DNA and the fact that they found the 22 Ruger that he said was stolen inside his house.
He's an idiot.
On the third day of trial, he changes his plea to guilty and was sentenced to life in prison, eligible for parole in 2029.
What?
Now, some people have asked if it could have been Glen's boys that have been responsible.
No.
But they were too young, and DNA matched 100%, so it would have come back a relative for anybody who's like, maybe one of his boys done it. But no.
How old was he when she was taken? I know you said he was married with 2 kids, but...
Andrew, you do the math. Break out your schmalculator. He had to have been in his 20s.
Yeah, around 20.
Because he's in his 70s now.
Well, if he was 70 in 2020, That means he's born around 1950, and if she
So
was taken in 1970,
he's in his late 70s
oh,
in 2020.
ew,
Yeah.
then he was in his late 20s.
Hmm.
I'd be curious if his DNA pings anything else in the system, because it's weird that he'd
So
be a one and done.
it's funny you should say that because this is a highly controversial scenario here because it was very like you know how people usually build up to like being so brazen to snatch somebody like that, let
Hmm.
alone with a witness. He could have waited and like stalked her until he was dropping her off, or I don't know, she had to go pee, get a drink of water, anything, and snatched her when there were no witnesses. But to actually,
He did a pretty good job of snatching her and
right,
having no
it make
witnesses, though.
I would think he got some practice in.
Yeah.
Um, Now, after his arrest, social media explodes. Videos circulate claiming that Glen was suspected in killing 4 girls based on other unsolved cases in the 70s. However, lumping together cases doesn't help anybody because, as we've done before, sometimes there are just a whole lot of bad people all at once. And just because you got one doesn't mean you throw on all the other unsolved cases.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you, nothing's official. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook where people are saying he killed 4 girls. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm saying he probably did. Other people. But whether it's the 4 that they're saying he did, he was never tried, convicted. None of that was ever linked to him officially. It's just, I think, Facebookers. Suspicion is not proof, speculation is not evidence, and repetition does not make a claim true. So stop passing along bad information.
Oh, I can't stand Facebook with some of the cases that people are spreading. Like the one that I did on the dad that claimed he rescued his daughter from sex trafficking and murdered her boyfriend who sold her into sex trafficking. No, they were meth heads. He didn't save her. He picked her up from the hospital. It's just people
Yeah,
don't know what they're talking about, and they're saying this guy's a hero. And all the GoFundMe pages and shit for him, it makes me nauseous every time I see it because he flat out murdered a mentally handicapped 19-year-old boy.
right.
So spreading shit on Facebook because it's the thing to do right now is disturbing.
Well, it really is, and it put me in a weird spot because I don't want to be put in a spot to defend somebody who killed someone. However, if you lead a case by just saying, "Oh, he killed one, he had to kill them all," then you're not potentially arresting anyone else. And mind you, I realize these are unsolved cases from the 70s that he may or may not have done, but I don't know why we would shut the door on potentially anyone else.
Right.
We don't do that now. If there's like a fresh body somewhere and they arrested somebody, we don't go, let's tack on everybody else who was murdered within this range.
Right.
So,
Well, I'd be curious if they're running any DNA or doing anything to confirm anything
probably not. You want me to tell you why?
because he died in prison.
He sure did in
Ugh.
2023.
Well, it's not like they gave him a real sentence anyway.
Well, he didn't have much time left. And it's frustrating because any answers about additional crimes that sure did die with him, and you know as well as I do, is that they're not going to run stuff to test him because he can't prove himself innocent from the grave. So that silence is only part of what makes this case so unsettling. But I find it wildly disturbing that he was just out there just doing his thing.
Him in all his glory.
And I feel so bad for Carla's family because that was no justice. May have been closure, but it was,
It's some shit closure.
yeah, some a real pile of it because they went 3 excruciatingly long days to find out that she was dead and to learn that she wasn't just sitting in the ditch for days, that somebody had her for a bit. It's disgusting.
I wonder what his personal life was like for all those decades. Like, was he a piece of garbage?
Oh no, according to everyone, he wasn't.
Okay, well,
He went to church.
Dahmer also had people that said he wasn't a terrible feller. I
Well,
mean,
it should be unsettling to everybody that people can just run in the background like that.
but I'd be curious if he was like, did his wife from back then, were they still married? Do you know? Or did she divorce him? And if she divorced him, was there reasonings behind it? Like he had a bit of a temper? You know what I mean? I'd be curious on that side of things. Were his kids, did they think he had a bit of a temper? I get that people out and about on the street that came across him might not have that clarity, but kind of like my kids, they're angels at school, and people tell me how sweet and wonderful they are. But then here, they're ready to fight like cats and dogs if they get a burr up their butt. So you don't always see somebody's true colors when they're out and about.
So they were married.
When he got arrested?
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
Still living in Fort Worth together.
Oh. Did she do any interviews or anything?
So police talked to both of them in their home initially, and that's when it was just like a whole thing.
Was she in on it? Oh, because we've seen plenty of...
No, they were out of town.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if they did anything else after that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Flashes of your Rosemary West.
Yeah, the West were fucked.
There's plenty of dynamic duos out there that have done some awful things. I'd be curious on that one. We got to interview their kids. You go ahead and take care of that, Claire. I get that you can be shocked, but to find something like that out and then people are like, looking back, there's some clarity, some things that didn't make sense way back when kind of make sense now. You know what I mean? Like that type of scenario? Sure, I guess. But I'd be curious to see how this pans out, if he gets connected to other murders and all of that. And contrary to what you say, not to argue just for argument's sake, but they do still close stuff out. Because I have a case I'm working on that the killer is found, but he had died like a decade before they even connected him to the murder. But they connected him, so
maybe they will. Maybe since it's still early in the 2020s.
Yeah.
Ish. Which I was wrong earlier.
Of course. I knew it.
Hey.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, so when they sent that pile of like cold cases, it was in like April, May 2020 to build a profile. And it wasn't until summer 2020 when they collected enough of it that it was linked to Glen. And then in July is when they collect some trash out of his trash can, test it, it matches. Then they go and get a voluntary cheek swab from him in September on the 10th. Then the 16th, they get a confirmation that it matches. And then on the 21st is when they go and arrest him.
Hey, Dave, if you want, shoot me a text and I'll take out that little snippet of Claire saying, I was wrong, and I'll send you that and you can just play it on a button.
I was wrong earlier. I was wrong earlier. Where is the loyalty?
I don't have him recorded saying, I was wrong.
You won't either. And no, it's not because he's never wrong.
I was just... You set yourself up for that one, and I didn't even have to say it.
Yeah.
I hate cases like this.
Yeah, because 46 years of just prowling around. I don't believe that that's the only person he killed. I find it hard to believe people will abduct and kill somebody one time.
Well, and he kept her for a couple days too.
Mm-hmm.
Not to give criminals, not to give ourselves enough that saying that we have criminals listening to us is a how-to. But I don't understand, why did he keep the gun? You would have thought that the fear of being interviewed, he would have got rid of that shit ASAP.
For sure, I would have chunked that into some sort of body of water, and then if they found it, I'd be like, well, I said it's been missing for a while.
Right. Or, here's another thought. And this is how I know I've done the podcast for too long. If you bought a gun and you were planning to commit a crime, call and report it missing or stolen, then use it in your crime, and then get rid of it.
Yeah. Why would you point out tips?
I said, this is how I know I've been doing the podcast too long, but I don't understand why people don't do that more. And if there's a spike in that, then woohoo, we have listeners. Not the good ones, though. You're quiet. Why are you quiet?
I was trying to see if I could reach my mouse.
Why?
Because my screensaver turned on. No, but on a note to you, I think you should let your children know about this one because they're all getting to that age where they're going to be probably up to something at some point, whether it's after a movie or whatever. I get they want their alone time space, but to be aware of your surroundings, not to victim shame at all, but it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
They had the lure of thinking they were safe in the car and in a place that had people around.
Yeah. It's sad.
And I forget what your statistic was that one time where it takes like a few seconds for people to be abducted.
Like 10 seconds.
It's just, that's crazy amount of time to vanish and nothing, and no one sees anything.
Mm-hmm.
So be vigilant, people. Tell your children
Don't hang out in parking lots and lock your doors.
to be aware of your surroundings, ma'am.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah, lock your doors too, because also crimes of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it was a crime of opportunity.
I feel like probably, like, he wasn't, I don't think he was following her specifically. I think
No.
he could have just been, maybe he was a pervert spanking it in the bushes at the bowling alley.
Or if he worked over there, or there's some fast food place. Maybe he was over pooping behind the fast food place. I don't know.
I thought it was weird that police considered people who could be in the walking distance of the bowling alley, because I was like, I feel like somebody would have noticed if he walked away with her.
Yeah, that would have been a little more
Mm-hmm.
red flaggish.
Yeah, but I
'Cause-
feel bad for that one.
yeah. I wonder where he lived.
Oh, and if you're tired of hearing Fort Worth cases, Dave's the one who finds these.
I wonder if he lived near the bowling alley.
I told you he did.
Like how far?
A mile.
Oh, I think I heard this case before.
You probably
on,
did.
I would think I watched it on one of like the
Facebook things?
no.
Probably. You're on there a lot. You and Dave. He probably shared it with you. Son of a bitch. He's supposed to be my exclusive case finder.
What was his name?
Dave.
You're an idiot.
You've met him before.
The killer
He's
feller.
the tall one, dark hair.
The killer.
Glen.
Glen.
Yeah, so cross him off your list of things to do.
He's not on my list of things to do.
Oh, I did send you the email.
Oh, he was. I just looked it up.
He's on your list?
No, an episode of Evil Lives Here. They did an episode on him.
Well, it probably won't be the only one, because I won't be surprised if they link anything else to him.
So what'd you send me?
Oh, just so you can see poor little Carla.
Email?
Well, I didn't stick a stamp on it and put it in the post office.
I wasn't sure. Smart ass. Yeah, she looks like your typical cheerleader.
Yeah, but I feel like he probably enjoyed watching people. He was just a predator in the shrubbery.
Jerking his junk.
Yeah, and don't park near shrubs or vans.
Is that why Dave told you not to park near bushes?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad suggestion. You know, park where there's lights.
Yeah. Oh, he was 78.
I told you, late 70s. Which is why even if it would have been life of any variety, like, he's at the end of it. He's on borrowed time as it is. Feel bad for the family, too. His family. What?
I was just reading, and it says, after he entered a surprise guilty plea to the 1974 murder of Carla Walker, he was sentenced. I thought you said he got 9 years.
No, I said he was up for parole.
Oh.
2029.
Yeah, he got a life sentence Tuesday. Glen's son walked across the room and approached Carla's brother Jim, and they embraced for several minutes.
That's a long embrace.
Glen's son cried into Carla's brother's collared shirt as he whispered into his ear, and they held each other.
Hold up, what? Glen's son cried into Carla's brother's shoulder? As in the murderer's son hugged the victim's brother?
Uh-huh. And cried.
That's real sad. I'd be sorry too. Even though, I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it, it just, I wouldn't have answers for that, and it's so fucked.
And it says Glen's wife Judy was also in the courtroom and talked with Carla's family members. After everyone flowed out of the courtroom and into the hall, she said she thought of her own son's death during the trial. She said the drunk driver who killed her son Craig told them at the time, "There's nothing I can say and nothing I can do to bring your son back." And that's how I feel.
She's not wrong. Only this feller doesn't have the, well, not that a drunk driver has an excuse, but at any point he could have not done what he did. But also, just for everybody else out there, just because you go to church doesn't mean you're a good person. That's where they like to hide. Said what I said. Yeah. Well, this is probably why you have all the people who like you.
I'm sure somebody likes you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, just if you guys knew what she said when the mic was off.
What? So this actually is going to release on, this case is releasing on February 12th. So keep in mind, fellers and ladies, you got 2 days before Valentine's Day. Better scurry.
Or try to do it the weekend before and be extra surprisey. because you don't need to fall in line with what the world tells you when to buy flowers or chocolates. Turns
If you're
out you can do that at any point.
well, if you're doing it for Valentine's Day, you kind of are told. But you can sure give gifts whenever.
Well, you shouldn't have to be reminded that there's somebody significant in your life and treat them as such.
I agree.
Okay. That's all I got.
You bored yourself to a yawn. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mindfucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.